Overwork unapata ita function vizuri. Na moyo isipo function vizuri kuna symptoms. Kuna vitu kadhaa zenye utaona utaanza kufeel. Utaanza kusikia kama umechoka. Saa zingine unasikia kizunguzungu. Kuna wakati hata unaweza zimia. Unaweza sikia kifua. Uchungu wa kifua. Sometimes you might start coughing. So there are a whole myriad of symptoms that come with heart diseases. And the purpose of such an event is to create awareness so that mjue gonjwa wa moyo ni kitu ambayo kiko.
President William Ruto's advisor on gender issues, Harriet Shigai, has lamented the high defilement cases that are being reported in the country, with Busia County leading. Speaking in Teso North constituency, accompanied by Busia County Member of Parliament Catherine Omanyo, Shigai said Busia County has registered more than 13,000 cases over the past 3 years, an issue that is worrying if not handled.
So Busia County is leading in Kenya currently on matters defilement, where you have an institution with a register of 13,000 defiled girls over some period of years. That means we are going to lose a whole generation. It is really bad. Not unless your child is affected, most of us look the other way. But
she challenged the courts and police to work together and ensure that the perpetrators are arrested and charged in court.
For me, my message first is to the judiciary. They must utilize the time they have to resolve these cases within the shortest period possible. In many cases, we say children lie, but in my experience, children don't lie. Children actually tell the truth. It's only that we as parents refuse to listen. So we have the judiciary, we have the police, we have the chiefs who hold barazas in terms of solving these issues under trees. And now we are saying that has to stop, because you release these people, they are criminals, they go back to the community and they do the same crime. So mine is to call upon all the government agencies. They must do their job, they must act fast, they must protect these children.
Residents of Esise in Nyeri County have protested against their area MCA Joseph Mangera's petition against Governor Nyeri, but the residents have said that the move may interfere with development in the county, as experienced before during the tenure of former Governor Nyangarama. They are now asking the MCAs to shelve their ambition and instead meet with the governor and solve the differences.
Nyamira imekosa maendeleo miaka 10 wakati Nyangarama alikuwako, sababu MCA wanaanza kumuingilia. Tunataka hivi wakae na gavana wamwambie ile mambo wanataka kufanya, si kusema ati wamutoa busy.
The Council of Governors is set to present a memorandum to the Teachers Employer TSC seeking the expedition of the process to delocalize teachers. Speaking during NAT's branch annual general meeting, Kakamega Governor Fernandez Baraza said there is need for TSC to revise certain policies on recruitment in order to ensure staff motivation. On his part, NAT Deputy Secretary General Hesbon Otieno said the union will still be pushing for an increment of salaries in order to cushion teachers from the prevailing economic hardships. This is Newswire. Dennis Asseto, good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No. It's about shipping up. You know my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the ship in the bathtub? Or
the ship man.
Emmanuel Talabu used to tell us a story of though in school and then been told to write composition about a ship. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about a ship or a ship goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, on to a few hours after 9 o'clock, or rather minutes after 9 o'clock. It seems like hours after being in traffic this morning. So we're still looking at a little bit of movement on the Thika Superhighway today, and it's going to take us out towards the Survey Drift and then out towards the underpass. Not too crazy though. I think this one we can manage. We're looking at some traffic on Langata Road as well. It's busy as you get towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, and then onto Huru Highway into the CBD, out towards Westlands, and in from Westlands towards the CBD. That's where it looks like most of it is pretty busy right about now. We're going to keep an eye on this and see how it opens up. We're getting out of traffic hour not too far from now, but we want to keep an eye on things and see how this progresses. Do talk to us on Spice FM KE on X as we try to keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
8 minutes after 9 o'clock sees us get into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this Monday. And let me tell you about the EYA Awards. They're back this year on the 6th of October. It's just this Friday. And they're saying, you know what? Looking for relations practices amongst employers in Kenya. It's an initiative of Federation of Kenya that seeks to vet organizations which put people at the core of their business and have implemented policies, systems, and processes that create and sustain enterprise competitiveness, resilient productivity improvement alongside industrial peace and harmony. So they're saying, you have this, how about you enter into these awards? They're being held at the Safari Park Hotel on the 6th of October. Enter for your categories in leadership and governance, corporate performance and productivity, innovations and adaptation to change, responsible business conduct, inclusiveness and diversity, workplace environment, learning and development, and then get on to www.fke-kenya.org and see how you can place your organization to take part in these awards this year. Not to forget, the 6th of October at Safari Park Hotel, and let's see what happens then. Another October event is taking place on the 29th of October. It's the 20th edition, so it's a special one of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. It's Kenya's largest single-day athletics event. www.nairobi-marathon.com. Log on and find out how you can participate in this. Pay 2,000 shillings and you get a chance to participate in a marathon that helps people, folks living with disability and young girls, to get a chance to learn, earn, and grow. So do that today and you could participate come the 29th of October. All right. It's still an education conversation this hour, and our guest for the hour is seated. And as we're getting into it, let me introduce you this morning to Anthony Manyara, who is the president of the Kenya University Students Organization. He's in the hot seat this morning. Anthony, good morning.
Morning to you.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, asante sana.
Kenya's biggest conversation, where you're seated, is the hot seat. It's a hot topic, this one, looking at what's wrong with education in the country. There are many things going on at the same time, many balls in the air, and we cannot but discuss it as often as we can. So let's welcome you in true Situation Room style. CT has the day's proverb from Uganda.
Yes, people who live together cannot fail to have quarrels.
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah.
But Manyara has just...
Quick go, let's go.
Exactly, to the point. Okay, why do you think so?
First of all, let me begin by saying hi to very many comrades in the country. There are more than 6 million students. They may be coming from, they may be taking undergraduate courses. They may be doing PhDs. They may be in technical institutions. All those students, nawasalimia sana.
Why do people call each other comrades?
Because we are a family.
Oh,
you know,
not in
comrades is
war.
brotherhood. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So apparently, I also represent students at the East African level, and I'm also the president for East African Students Union.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in extension, I can say hi to all those comrades from the nooks and crannies of the East African space. Concerning the issue that you have addressed is that, of course, university students are facing a lot of issues, and they are the most oppressed. We believe after the opposition and the government have sat down for dialogue, university students have been left out, and they are in a situation which you cannot even fathom or imagine.
But I want you to tell us what you think about the proverb. This one.
The problem.
The proverb that Titi has given us from Uganda.
Hold the thought where it is. We are coming back to it, and that's what we want you to address. But tell us about the proverb first.
The problems.
The proverb. The one that we've
What do you
given
think
from
of the
Uganda.
proverb?
Maybe
Yes.
Titi, you can tell us the proverb again.
I will tell you the proverb.
Okay.
He agreed. I'm going to speak slowly.
Okay.
People who live together cannot fail to have quarrels.
What do you think about that?
I think, yeah, it's true. And if you put very many eggs in one basket, sometimes you find that they can crack due to sometimes friction, due to force, and but that has to have some external forces.
Yes.
So even in a family, when you guys love each other so much, you will expect that if external forces are exerted, then people can quarrel. So it doesn't mean that quarrels are a bad thing.
Right.
Take for instance, if tomorrow our students go to the streets, doesn't mean that we don't love this country. Doesn't mean that we don't love those buildings. Doesn't mean that we don't love those streets. There's only a small quarrel. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that gives a segue into this conversation that we're having today. Education in crisis. And it doesn't matter what level we're looking at, from primary to secondary through to tertiary, at that level. And we're saying that there are many things that have been going on. So if we can give some kind of background to it. The Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms came and gave their report. They've been going around the country for the past 6 months or so. And they found certain things. And they gave recommendations also across the board. Right? So if we're looking at university students, you've come off saying that, university students are the most poorly treated in this country, and we've seen some suggestions or recommendations for reform in this sector, from funding to infrastructure. We've talked about own source revenue for universities. I mean, across board, so many things have happened. So it's clear that there is attention being given to kind of sort things out, but you seem to feel differently. Why is that?
Allow me to begin by saying that you cannot pickpocket a naked man. Our students are oppressed because ranging from the parents to the students, they are all broke. There's an economic situation in the country. Who do we blame? We blame, of course, some of the players up there, starting with the government. Now, our university students, they are facing a lot of issues, all ranging, but all of them converge to depression and the loss of hope and the aspect of people feeling like even committing suicide. If we look at the papers recently, wanafunzi wengi sana, they have been dying recently. What is the cause? Because of where they live, there is a lot of security threats. Those are places whereby you cannot imagine students can live. That is why actually we partnered with the Department for Housing. Charles Hinga. In fact, niliona mlimhost hapa juzi. We want to see how students also can live in this decent housing. They don't have to be taxed at all, the housing levy. We want to see how they can be given decent spaces to live. When you look at when first years are being oriented by various vice chancellors of different universities, there are tents which are set, whereby private developers, they come, they start to showcase their private developments. I won't mention which, but how much do they charge students for rent? Very extremely very high. When do you expect those students to get that rent? You can't even imagine. Do those parents have money to sustain students for fees and then also afford that kind of rent? No. We want to see how students living in Kibra, students living in Madare, students living along Thika Road, students living in Zimmerman, students living in Kasarani, even all those hinterlands zile universities, University of Kabianga, Jost, Maseno University, Masai Mara, all the way to Garissa, Pwani, Tum, all these students, we want to see how they can stay near school. Already, some of these universities have cooperated. They have they have, of course, given land. They have done partnerships with the ministry to see how external investors, they come develop on those lands. Now, there are universities, of course, in which the CEO and other cartels in the administration, they want to squander. They want to embezzle funds and also sell those lands and lease out. But then we are on the watch. In fact, as comrades, we normally say that comrades are barometers of wisdom and catheters of knowledge. We will fight them wherever they are. If they are trying, of course, to steal land that is belonging to the public, we are going, of course, to expose them and we are going to act. But what generally we are saying is the mood is there are so many deaths of university students, cases of rape, theft. You know, nowadays, if you meet with a thief, because they know we are in very modern times, and you are carrying a backpack, which carries a laptop, you know, the thief may not want the idea of you seeing him and living with your life. They would want to steal and then also steal your life. So it is a situation in which we want to see how police stations are being set near each and every institution for security purposes. And then, do students live in decent housing? These private developers, what they are doing, they are erecting buildings and then they partition spaces. Unapata mahali wanataka wanafunzi waishi kunakaa kama choo. It's a very tiny space. I'm an architect, by the way, by profession. It's a very tiny space. How do you account for students paying the range of 20,000 for a small space? Leveraging on the aspect of proximity to the institution. It doesn't make any sense. We are looking at a government in which it is promoting people to live, and this is enshrined in the constitution. So these are kind of things we are fighting for, but that's just aspect of accommodation and security issues.
But let me ask this question. When you say you have a police station, we are then introducing the subject of security.
Yes.
Are you saying that the presence of the police guarantees security? Does the college have its own security? Does the college or the universities or university colleges, do they induct students into matters of safety and ensuring that they understand their role in ensuring that they are secure? And if so, how do they do it? Because you have halls of residence. I'm out of touch here, but there used to be people who were elected to be leaders in those halls of residence, people who students could take administrative matters to so that they could take it forward. What sort of framework do the universities have to ensure not only do the students have a voice, you are here so they do have a voice, but a structure that then guarantees that this safety is not left in the hands of a police post, because it's never stationed. They simply will not be able to manage the security in the university.
Well, it all stands to reason. If you look at this country, we have IMBC, which carries national internal elections, right?
Yes.
But what is the essence of having observers, even from outside? We need an external player who is not
partisan.
Who is partisan.
Yes.
Now, these universities, they have security internal organs. In fact, each and every university has allocated. If you come to the University of Nairobi, we have a whole directorate for security. Now, the issue that we have at hand is that students, they cannot rely on internal security. Simply because the internal security is being twisted by the administration. Remember, each and every university, we have a council, and then we have a senate, and then we have the top management. In the University of Nairobi, there's something they call University Management Board, I think, something of the sort. Now, all these people, trust me, you may want to say they have the best intentions, but me seated where I am, I understand the issues that students go through. I will come to the bit of why we see even university students themselves. Nowadays, they don't elect someone they want. They elect someone handpicked by the administration. So, all we are telling the government is we cannot really 100% rely on internal organs for security. We want to see how also they can chip in to ensure the boost security that we have internally. Remember, there is no life that is special. We want to see how a student is being released by the parents, let's say from Turkana, let's say from Mombasa, let's say even from outside the country. A student studies in safety, relying on government security and also relying internally on the security of the institution.
Security, yeah. So there are issues here from what you saw. If we're going to look at this issue of death of university students, would you say that the safety security of a student is primarily the responsibility of the institution that they've gone to attend?
Well, what I believe is that all institutions are equal. I believe sometimes also the government over-concentrate on some institutions more than others. But what I believe is that a student in a university or an institution or a college or a polytechnic or a TVET institution, whichever part of the country has more potential than the other one perceived to be doing better. Why do you think that university students who have done architecture like myself or even engineering like another person are on the streets for more than maybe 7-10 years, coming from a prestigious university?
Why are they?
I would say, first of all, personal efforts. Second, opportunities. There are very scanty opportunities in this country, which brings the aspect of how long can your hand stretch, or rather, how tall is your ankle, or who are you connected to, generally. Now, there are students who have no long hand. They have a very short ankle. And that is where I come in. I mean, I'm the tallest ankle for themselves. So what we do is that my office, of course, tries as much as best to cushion those students to see how we can be able to get job opportunities, internships, up to this level. From the time I was president for University of Nairobi, that was University of Nairobi Students Association, SONU, up to now, I have ensured that more than 7,000 students have been absorbed in the programs of internship in this country from various agencies, government agencies, parastatus, NGOs, all these platforms. In the same breath, more than 5,000 students have gotten jobs. That is my work. I don't really flaunt or try to, because it is service. If you are elected, you have to work, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but what I just want to say is that there's a lot of hopelessness out there. We want to see a government which is pro-students. How are you transitioning from the university? Kama umetoka TVET institution, yes, the government is allocating some funds to TVET institutions through HELB. Yes, they are, of course, subsidizing the kind of fees you are paying. But in an industry whereby you are manufacturing something, then you should be able to have provided market. Lazima ukuwe umeonyesha huyu mwanafunzi utamproduce, anaenda wapi? Are you just trying to, sorry to use our offensive word, are you trying to pull students? Are you trying to just defecate or urinate or whatever it is, you just want to brush off and then you leave them out there with a lot of hopelessness? It makes my work difficult because these students, they don't leave the student space. When they graduate, they are still there. They hanging around saying that, oh, President, tafadhali utafutie kazi, nini. How many students can I get jobs?
Let me go back.
No, please go ahead.
But Amanyara, walk us through what your function is, what your mandate is. What is it that is required of you by the people who elect you?
Now, come to imagine that when a student leaves home from their parents, now try to imagine, if you come to the university, I'm your father and mother as Manyara. I have a whole government, all ranging from the cabinet. We have an executive. We have regional leaders. We have representatives, just like the way we have county reps or other ward representatives. We have all those people, all those student leaders. What we do for students, we serve them. Now, there is something that university students at their own institutions, they cannot be able to solve. Who solves for them? KUSO, the Kenya University Students Organization. If something is not able, they are not able to solve at Kenyan level, then we solve at the East African Students Union. So apparently we have a wide range of functions. If your student has been suspended from the university, the institution cannot fight for you. Who is your lawyer? You cannot afford a lawyer. Who is your lawyer? The SCUSO. Us, we go direct. If dialogue fails, we go to the streets. Just like the way we are saying, if help is not released today, then our students have no other option rather than to be on the street starting from tomorrow.
Okay.
All through.
All right. That's understood. And now looking at some issues, because we want to look at some fundamentals here, talking about help and talking about financing of an education, and then also talking about grades with which now students will be able to enter the university. We'll look at that in a bit. But do you feel that leaving university, it is absolutely necessary then for government to kind of hold hands of students from point A to point B, not just say you've graduated, you now have the power to read, go off on your own and fill the earth? We're saying that government should then step in further and hold hands for students to then be able to move from this point to the next. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. In a well-developing country which has got the best interests of the citizens at heart, we do not want perfection. In fact, even the reforms, or rather the documents, or rather the recommendations by the Working Party for Education Reforms, whatever they have come up with, they are very good ideas. The only thing that we do not really accept is the fact that there was no complete, thorough public participation, whereby students' grievances were put, some issues were addressed. We had said that we want to scrap off Duale Bill, which has been oppressing students for the longest, which has been suppressing the voices of students. Those kind of aspects, we want to see how we can have an external body dealing with the issues of suspensions, expulsions for university students. We want to see how we can have a directorate for student affairs at the government level. Let's say even the executive office of the president, or rather even the Minister of Education, a directorate for student affairs. Very many students are facing a lot of issues in our universities, all ranging from depression, all ranging from pregnancies, rape cases, a lot of cases. Do the dean of students from various universities institutions handle those cases to satisfaction? No. What we want to see, because those dean of students, sometimes you can even fight, wow, wengine ni mapasta, wengine ni father, wengine ni, I don't know. But I don't know what really happened to Christianity or whatever religion it is. Because those people, they do not have the empathy, the sympathy to sympathize with a student who is dying. These kind of students, we want to see how they go to the ministry, they see an external player, or rather a whole directorate, in which their hopes can be, risen up.
Yes.
Because, talk of it, if a student goes to the university, most of them are very hopeless. Why? Sio mambo na missing marks, sio mambo na kuinama. There's something called kuinama, by the way. How many Kenyans even know what kuinama is? Do you know what kuinama is?
I have no idea.
Kuinama is you have to bed so that hunger can pass.
Really?
You are skipping a meal, not just one, 2 meals. That means you cannot afford a 50 shillings meal around the university. Now, when we have weak leaders in our institutions, what it means is hata bei ya chapati itapanda. Now, when I was chairman University of Nairobi, chapati ilikuwa 10 bob. Sahi chapati I think 25 ama 30. There's a place called Klabu. Even institutions like KU, there's a place called KM. How much is a normal meal for
Kilometer 101?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was called.
So there is a question which you had framed. Do we expect the government to babysit us from institution to... Yes, there's something they can do. I surprise you. The government can offer incentives to various government agencies. Actually, if they can offer incentives to private companies, which actually have they have a wide range of opportunities.
Yeah.
If they can be able to tell them, absorb these interns, a small percentage of interns, absorb these jobs, we are going to, depending on how much you absorb, we are going to offer you incentive A, incentive B, incentive C.
Incentive C. Okay.
The government has the ability. Nowadays, I normally see, if you go to the maritime department authority, you see they are saying there are 100,000 jobs. If you come to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are going to take these kind of jobs. Very many jobs.
that are available.
Who do they take anyway?
Connect
because
them with
I've never seen.
Okay.
They don't call to ask me, bring us a number of students to absorb there.
And they can.
Yeah.
Let's take a break on that note and we'll come back and continue with this. Spice FM has officially turned 4 years old and we thank you for this amazing journey being with us since 2019. To commemorate this, we invite you all to the Ngong Hills Hotel for a special Spice FM birthday party this Saturday, the 7th of October, for a special spiced up night. In the house, you'll get to meet all your Spice FM super hosts. CT. The party begins from 7 p.m. till very late. You want to know what the dress code is? Grown and sexy. See you there. It's 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Conversations continue after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Some very nice, mature music.
They really take me back to my days and I can just feel young again and enjoy the vibes.
Spice.
I'm a big listener of Spice FM.
You play the best music.
This is 94.4 Spice FM. Business News with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. Kenya's inflation rose marginally in September after all sectors recorded a general increase in prices. Inflation was 6.8% year-on-year in September from 6.7% a month earlier, while on a monthly basis inflation was 1% from negative 0.1% a month earlier, according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. In mid-September, the country's energy and petroleum regulatory authorities said the prices of petrol, diesel and kerosene would rise. The Architects Association of Kenya has joined landscape architects from all over the world to call for recognition of their profession. In a conference that brought on board architects drawn from several countries in the world under the ban of the International Federation of Landscape Architects, the architects said that they play a critical role in an array of fields, including climate change, social inequality and biodiversity. East African Breweries has reported a significant progress in its net zero journey by emitting 55% less carbon in the last year. The rollout of biomass steam plants in Uganda and Kenya increased renewable energy use in EABL's operation to 64.86%, up from 25.8% in 2022. Environment, Climate Change and Forestry Cabinet Secretary Soipantuya applauded EABL for its commitment for reducing water and energy consumption, increasing the use of renewable energy and minimizing waste generation. Prices of rough diamonds, the raw, unpolished and uncut stones, have dipped in 2023 as many post-pandemic consumers shy away from luxury goods. According to the Zeminski Global Rough Diamond Index, prices are the lowest they've been in a year. All models of one-wheel electric skateboards are being recalled after the maker Future Motion received reports of 4 deaths of users between 2019 and 2021 and multiple reports of serious injuries. In the recall notice for 300,000 of the self-balancing skateboards, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission warned people to immediately stop using the skateboards, which can stop balancing the rider if the board's limits are exceeded, posing a crash hazard that can result in serious injuries or death. The agency said that the death resulted from head trauma, and in at least 3 of those cases.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Facebook at Spice FM KE. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
Our guest is Anthony Manyara, who is the president of the Kenya University's Students Organization. Having questions, or rather having a conversation about, what ought to be done about some of the situations that students find themselves in at the university tertiary level moving forward.
The running of the university, of our public universities, from everything we read and from what we hear, beyond the wranglings and the back and forth about who should lead which university, who should be in the Senate, who shouldn't be, land being grabbed, there's this small matter of simply running the university so that it does what it's supposed to do. Now, we've always questioned whether our tax money is being utilized properly by our public university administration. That's a discussion for another day. Now, you lead a big organization. It has a structure, it has a framework. Running any organization requires money. Who funds the organization you lead?
Well, let me begin by saying that each and every institution in Kenya, they elect their representatives.
Yes.
How much are they paid? If you come to the University of Nairobi, the highest ranking person, how much is he paid? It's barely 20,000 Kenya shillings. But then again, every university has a budget. University of Nairobi, I think, has a budget close to, I think, over 20 million. Between 20 and 30, thereabout.
For these activities?
When I was chairman for the University of Nairobi, my budget was around 33 million.
33 million?
Yes.
And where did they get this money from?
Well, students contribute. There's something they contribute, like 500 shillings.
Is it voluntary or is it mandatory?
It's very mandatory.
Okay.
Now, for Kuso, apparently we don't have a budget for Kenya University Students Organization. We don't have a budget. I totally do it voluntarily. I see to it that after election you have them a date to serve your students. They have expectations, and if I were to leave this office, then university students who don't have a national voice, and for some reason I don't understand why the government doesn't allocate funds to Kuso as a government, because we recommended the Working Party for education reforms. I made it very articulate and very clear that what we want is something ranging from 10 billion to 20 billion as the budget for Kuso, so that we are able to run our affairs effectively. Remember, I'm an architect. I run my private issues. I'm also pursuing law, University of Nairobi law campus. And from my own savings, ya kuchorea tu watu nyumba polepole hapa na pale. Also well wishers, friends, sometimes even students contribute. Hii ndio pesa tunategemea kidogo kidogo kusaidia wanafunzi nayo.
The body of people you work with, how many are they in total?
Right now stands around 136. Those are officials.
Around the country?
Yeah, around the country.
And who funds them?
Well, comradeship, we don't really rely on payment. It is a call.
It's voluntary.
It is a call, just like the way God called Moses.
Okay.
If you are called to serve, you don't have really to ask for payment.
Let me ask this question. Are members, say, for instance, of the Nairobi University Students' Union part of your well, not your cabinet, but yes, your administration?
Sorry?
Let's say, for example, Nairobi University has a students' union, or a students' body.
Yes.
Okay. Are they also members of? Are some of them members of your body?
Well, each and every student, all from the nooks and crannies of this country, whether it is from whichever institution, provided you're a student and you're breathing, hata kama unafanya PhD you yourself, then you fall under me, you fall under Kuso. So apparently, there is independence in various institutions. Like university, like KU, we have KUSA, KU Students Association. University of Nairobi, we have UNSA. In Technical University, we have SATUK. All these, if you go to TUM, we have TUMSA. Just an example. All these institutions, they fall under KUSO. We have private universities; they have their own they have their own association. We have private universities; they have their own association. We have TVET institutions; they have their own association. We have various bodies representing students. All these institutions, they all converge at KUSO. We play a bigger role up there.
You're like an umbrella body over all of these other organizations.
Exactly. You know, I ask this. I'm looking at the workers' union. They have KOTU. All these bodies, whether it is metal fabricators to sisal weavers, they all fall under KOTU.
Exactly.
But all these small associations of the individuals and the disciplines contribute to KOTU. So,
exactly.
one sees, and COTU also has contributions from labor International Labor Organization, ILO, etc., but it's from that premise that I was asking the question, because if you have all these people and you superintend them, you and the people you work with, then I was actually asking the question, why then don't they contribute to this? Because this is the mother body that looks after everybody else.
Remember I said I'm the president for East African Students Union?
Yes.
Like if you go to Uganda, they contribute for it's called UNSA, Uganda National Students Association.
Yes, they do.
If you go to Tanzania, of course there are some setbacks, or still we are working on it. They have something we call TALISO. That is a Tanzanian Higher Institutions Learning. Now, all these countries, they rage. Kuna wale wenye wanaogopa wanafunzi, they can't accept them to collect funds. Why do you think in this country we don't have a very functional National Youth Council, NYC? And in some countries it's very effective, like Rwanda. Why? I think governments fear the youth. Especially in this country, there is a lot of freedom.
They fear your numbers.
They fear the numbers.
You're many.
And they fear uncertainty.
Yes, you're very, very many. Yes.
So all we do in KUSO is to free the minds. You don't really need a lot of money. You don't need funds for you to organize yourselves to come out there. And then you said something, of course. Our institutions, we have independent bodies like UNSA, like SATUK, like TUMSA. If we have a demonstration, let's say like tomorrow, if these funds that we are so much seeking, that is help, if they are not forthcoming, what will you do? We want to expect the institution student leaders from those institutions. They ought to organize internally for their institutions to picket. It's actually enshrined in the constitution. It's very legal to picket peacefully. We don't want really students caught all over, arrested, some of them being subjected to police brutality, all these things. We want a peaceful protest to see how they fight for their own rights. Trust me, there is no government that wants students on the streets daily. They will be able to release that funds. Remember, even when MPs were fighting for CDF, they protested, actually, from even the National Assembly. What did Treasury do? They release money out the suit. That is very immediately. So that is what we expect our students to do. It is their right, in fact. And actually, it is very shameful that we see Treasury delaying funds when, delaying such small amounts of money. In fact, normally when students are striking, they normally strike for something which doesn't go beyond 20 billion. That's very small money. So we are seeing how much money is being wasted by various politicians compared to what they are requesting, and there are very big number of students tuning to the more than 200,000 students
that are there.
Yeah.
Let's look at a broader issue now, and one of those was the recommendations by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms when it came to them being able to finance a university education. And they split it then between what you would get in terms of a loan and a grant, or what you would get between a loan and then the other money that you were asked to go and get for yourself, right? And they split them into categories, as you know: vulnerable, needy, very needy, like that. And it went up the totem pole, as it were. I'd like to know what students generally feel about that, because we've seen reports, first of all, that there are certain students who then say this is expensive, especially when it comes to the loan aspect, that what you end up paying back as a result is even more expensive than what help would have been, and that it just the categorization doesn't make sense for them. Of course, the findings of the Presidential Working Party in terms of the recommendations and implementation right now is being discussed, but that as a fundamental principle in terms of how education will be funded moving forward, is there general acceptance of this?
Well, from where I sit, I will just say that the president has got some vision for this country, especially in the education sector. Now, if you look at these reforms, or rather the recommendations by the Working Party, the overall feeling, or rather spirit of the intention is quite good. Now, what we want to question is how they want to implement. If you look at the range of problems that normal Kenyans are facing, or rather the common person, the hoi polloi, the person at the lower ground, what are they facing? Are they able to align well with the reforms? That is what we are supposed to question. Now, personally, I believe that the reforms are quite good if implemented well. We want to question sustainability. How sustainable are they? How will you be able to differentiate a student who is needy, who is less needy, who is vulnerable? In an institution, ukipatana na mwanafunzi amevaa suti, can you be able to tell that student is rich or comes from a rich background? Sometimes we have so many beggars in suits around. Hata kuna pastor wa village akona suti yake. Now, we want to see a scenario. There's something they are calling means testing instrument. We want to see how they can be able to perfectly locate that student who is extremely needy. Yeah. We have seen in various constituencies, sons and daughters of cronies, wawale MPs, wawale governors, they're the ones getting, they're the ones getting CDF money, they're the ones getting bursaries. We don't want that to be replicated aspects of this funding model. We want to see how those students who are extremely struggling. And actually, I will allude to the fact that the president is saying their parents who are well able. It's true. Do you know how I know? How? The University of Nairobi, Parklands, campus. Yeah. Where I'm studying, in our whole class, wakati fee increasiwa ndio watu wanakuwa wengi. Sometimes you really don't understand.
That's a bit confusing.
Yeah, like mimi nasomanga even in classes. If you tell module 2 students to pay more, that is when they attract even so many people to enroll. I don't know that kind of...
That's an interesting phenomenon.
Yes. There are some parents who can afford. And there are very many parents, actually over 90%, who cannot afford such kind of things. Now, for the normal courses, or rather for the normal studying program, we want to see how the government can be able to support those who cannot afford. Okay. There's a huge disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And it should not be confused at all. Yeah.
This is what they're saying that they will do, that they'll be able to then, go in and find that information. So what I'm hearing you say is that generally you're all right with the basic principle of this funding model.
The spirit. I'm supporting the spirit.
Okay.
And the vision proposed by the president, President Ruto. Just like the way I also support the housing project. Leveraging on the fact that we are pushing to see how students can live in decent housing. That's the affordable housing plan. We'll see incorporation of affordable student housing project.
Okay, let's look at another aspect because now this affects directly university education. We've seen that KCSE, there were certain subjects that they asked you to be strong in to be able to then get into university. Now, and there were about 5 of those subjects, right? From the recommendations, again, of the Working Party, what we are seeing is that, all right, it has proved difficult in the past for people to be strong. And so what that did is that in all 5 subjects, so based on your strength per subject, that then saw if you would get accepted to the university or not, right? What they're saying now is that they're going to reduce that number, and they say, okay, let's take 2 of your strengths. And based on those 2, we will then admit you to a university, or rather, we will then say you're eligible for university admission. What that will do is that it'll open the door, basically, and that many, many more who were not previously able to attend university because of the grades that they attained will now be able to attend because we are taking in your strengths as opposed to what you scored. I would like to know what you feel about that from a student's point of view.
Well, I would want really to tell the various stakeholders making all these recommendations. What we are looking at is a time bomb. What we want to see is what you're proposing. Is it sustainable? Are you able really to sustain? Because if you tell students to decrease the number of subjects that they're supposed to, it will open more doors, of course, to the universities. But will you be able to handle all those numbers? Will you be able to absorb? Is the government really ready? Because what we have been really proposing is to see how the government can be able to manufacture more, can be able to come up with more technical jobs, because they have been really supporting TVETs and technical institutions whereby we have plumbers, technicians, engineers, all these people. They have skills, yes. But what happens if you are a very good artist and you stay over 10 years without really drawing or rather doing your artwork? What happens? That means even the skill, dwindles, runs away from you. So what we are proposing is, even as we progress to see how the education sector can be made good, we are not supposed to gamble with the lives of Kenyans, or rather potentially would be good people, would contribute positively to the society.
You know, one of the things that is always a problem is, what do you do with a youthful population? And we have such a population. How do you ensure that they have meaningful lives? Meaningful meaning they can get to be involved in the sort of courses that they find useful to themselves, and thereafter find meaningful engagement after school. So my question, you said from what the working party has presented, the implementation, what you're waiting for. Let me ask this question. Do you really think that if our curriculum were to focus on ensuring that students understand how to create their own businesses, and it is part of our curriculum, so that even as you're being trained before you even get to any tertiary or any university, you have not only participated in trying to create a business, but you've tried to see how it works. The proof of that concept has been set out. That we might find that even with our young population, we'll be creating jobs instead of creating people who need to look for jobs which don't exist.
There is a great challenge in this country. We must accept that. But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other. If you put them in a long duration. What I believe with time, if you take maybe 2 or 3 years, just Charles Darwin concept.
Survival of the fittest?
Not even the aspect of survival for the fittest. People will adapt to all these changes. It takes a ton of enlightenment for aspects of change to evolve or even materialize. What I think is that these concepts of change, if they are implemented well, they can be able to sustain. Remember, access to quality education is number 4 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Of course, yes.
It is something also advocated for by the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. If you look at the spirit of Mwai Kibaki's architectural blueprint of 2030, Vision 2030, you will see he envisions a decent person all the way from birth to see how he goes through school. Quality, decent. Decent means that you're a well-up person. You're not complaining. Decent living. Hiyo ni kumaanisha unapitia shule vizuri. Kama ni pesa haujasota. You know, if you go to 1980s and 90s, kulikuwa na kitu ilikuwa inaitwa boom. Students were able to live in the university harmoniously because they have even too much money, even to send money home, to send home to their parents. Now we want to see a scenario in this government. We are not telling you to spoon feed students. All you are telling them is you are sustaining their life in campus. Wakuwe na pesa ya mfuko, waache kuinama. Imagine students right now. Some of them are hunting bands. Others are even frying rats. We want to see a stop of that.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Just repeat what you said. I don't understand when you say that. And that's a form of food sustenance?
Yes. I'm saying, you know, people really don't understand. Even MPs. But as a leader, I know.
Help us to understand, because that seems like something.
Panya.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
I get it.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, it seems like a really dire situation that we're talking about today when students at the university level, because the question is, if that is the situation that you're living in, how then do you read, how do you study, and then attain actually an education that is worth then putting into whatever position later in the future?
Me, I would just want to tell you guys, nowadays, kumaliza masomo is by the grace of God. Even to finish alive, trust me. Bila mimba, bila kukua into drugs, na utoke pia ukiwa in good health. Maybe actually even nowadays, even sustaining a relationship in campus is something, you know, out of the blues. It's not really, it requires some extra energy. I want to say there are some institutions in which are favorable. I won't say that all institutions are the same, or even course you are taking. Remember, right now we have Module 1 and Module 2.
Yes.
There's a disconnect of students who are doing well financially or who come from able backgrounds. And then there is also those who come from the have-nots, the hoi polloi, their children, their sons and daughters. They cannot afford anything. They cannot afford meals. They cannot, generally they just live by the grace of God. Unaomba kesho uamke, uende class. Imagine lecturers. I just wish you would just call some random lecturers who teach these common courses. They will tell you there's some students actually who come to class without eating nothing in the morning. And then in the afternoon, they come for another long lecture, having only taken water, which is free in the institutions. So, affording porridge. Now, institutions like University of Nairobi, we have been really asking the Vice Chancellor, even the one who was there previously, Professor Mbidi, to Professor Mbeche, now to Professor Kiama. We want to see how students can be allowed even to cook again in their hostels. In their hostels, because that is even more sustainable. That is more affordable. I was last week on Saturday. Last Saturday. Wanafunzi wengi walisema hawana hata nguvu ya kudemonstrate hiyo Tuesday. Nikasema I'm coming up with aka program. Nikaweka hashtag ya Zakabench. Meaning that you can, okay, it's a common name for affording a small meal,
yes.
Which is
call it cabbage.
Zakabench wanaita hivyo. So I mean, so I had to break down, and to break down the costs of affording a meal for a student to survive, and I came up with 105 shillings, which I sent actually to over 500 students. And even for information, wale wenye hawakupata, I'm just using this to communicate to them. I will still do it. In fact, we'll be doing it weekly kwa wale wenye wanakuwa affected sana. Now, we had said that hiyo za cabbage, skuma ya 20 bob, inaweza kuwa skuma ama cabbage, nyanya ya 10, kitunguu ya 15, mayai ya 20, mafuta ya 10, unga ama rice approximately 30 bob a meal, because unaweza nunua ikiwa packet, which is totaling to 105 shillings. All you need there ni kiberiti na kerosene.
And from this can be done at school.
That one can be done at school. But what happens if you are buying food at school? It's very expensive.
Yes.
Because ukienda pale mess, let's say KU or University of Nairobi, just a reference, how much is a meal in the mess? Is actually more expensive than kukula nje.
Our time is running out, Anthony, but this is interesting because we've gotten on to conversations that need to be in the limelight even as we move forward to talk about some of these things that are unfortunately hidden. So, join us again in the future to be able to open up about these things and have candid conversations about them. Anthony Manyara is the president of the Kenya University Students Organization, and he's been here with us this hour. Thank you for keeping it the Situation Room this Monday morning. We'll talk again tomorrow at 6 a.m. Have a wonderful day. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Asset. Nominated Senator Gloria Oroba now says discrimination against women in the Senate is the main reason why the House supported the motion that saw her suspended for up to 6 months. In an interview with Spice FM, Oroba admitted that there is no gender balance in the Senate.
When the men ask for the other cards on the deck, nobody raises an eyebrow. They negotiate. They go on the side and they negotiate and say, okay, fine, it's true. Actually, when you see there's imbalance, what can we do? Okay, let's put you in this committee because actually we can see. They negotiate. But when a woman says these cards have been dealt with are wrong, they're like, well, kwanza uko nominated, flower girl.
She maintains that the Senate did not give her time to give her account.
I was suspended in my absence. Of course, I couldn't defend myself. I lost out on my 15 minutes. I was looking very... So that happened. And then I went back to the same court. I went back to court to say, guys, this, it's not fair. And the court agreed and said, this is not fair. So at the moment, we lift the suspension and you wait to be heard in court.
The new medical scheme was arrived at through a system that will ensure Kenyans receive medical care. President's advisor on health issues, Dr. Thuranira Kwagiria, told Radio Maisha that the previous systems failed because they did not follow the proper procedure to determine the correct charges.
Kulingana na mfumo mpya ambao unapendekezwa wa kulipa bima ya sasa itakuwa ya SHA, Social Health Authority ama Social Health Insurance. Ni kuwa utakuwa unalipa kulingana na mapato yako. Kama wewe ni mtu wa mapato ya chini, hesabu yako inapigwa, unaambiwa wewe unafaa kulipa 300, unafaa kulipa 350. Unaelewa? Unalipa juu pia mapato yake yanapigwa hesabu, unaona yale ambayo unafaa kulipa. Na kisha kuna mipango mingi ambayo tutakuwa nayo ya kulipa. Kwa ukiweza wewe huna kazi ujiwezi, tutaenda tuangalia mapato yako. Kama huna kazi ujiwezi, serikali itaweza kukulipia.
Thuranira also said that the 2.75% deductions will unify the deductions as opposed to the existing program where some get deducted 5% and others 1.5%.
Ni mzuri tuambiane ukweli. Mimi nalipwa 10,000, natoa 5% ya mshahara yangu, natoa 500. Wewe unalipwa 1,100, unatoa 1,700, unalipa 1.7% of your salary. Hakuna usawa hapa. Serikali hii mambo ya kwenda kuchagua hospitali ati unaambiwa mimi kuna muda wa kuchagua hospitali, wewe unafaa kwenda hiyo hospitali peke yake, hapana. Hii itakuwa unaenda hospitali yoyote, na kuna hospitali ambazo serikali imelipia, unaonekana ukipewa referral unaenda hizi hospitali zingine za juu, kama ni ya kibinafsi, kama ni the mission hospitals, kama ni ya serikali, na unaenda kutibiwa.
The United Nations Security Council will today vote on a resolution that will see a non-UN multinational force led by Kenya deployed to Haiti to combat gangs and restore security. The Council will develop the framework for and authorize a one-year deployment of an international force with a review after 9 months. Caribbean nations and members of the CARICOM regional group, including Jamaica, the Bahamas, and Antigua and Barbuda, have also expressed their readiness to support the mission that will be led by Kenya's force. The Bahamas has committed 150 persons to support the multinational force, while Jamaica said it cannot reach the 1,000 offered by Kenya. It will give what they can. A U.S. drafted resolution says the force would help build the capacity of local police planning, conducting joint security support operations, and also secure critical infrastructure sites and transit locations such as the airport, ports, and key intersections in Haiti. Meanwhile, Kitutu South MP Anthony Kibagendi has condemned the U.S. for not sending its troops to Haiti despite being capable. He says American security forces have the skills to restore stability in Haiti instead of deploying officers from countries like Kenya. He was speaking on Citizen TV.
Haiti needs support. While they need support, I'm perturbed at why the U.S. is aggressively seeking support from a small country like Kenya, yet they have all the resources and personnel, and Haiti is a few miles away from the U.S. They should be able to deploy their police officers or even the army to go and restore peace there.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto, good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.